Wheelies, the original trick that everyone who rides a bike should be at least trying to do. In this video, I'll give you a few tips on how to master them, make it a bit easier and keep that front wheel higher for longer. The initial front wheel lift is a tricky bit if you're not used to doing this. So get your bike in a nice, low, easy gear. The thing you've got to do is time it right by putting in a big, powerful pedal stroke and then leaning back into it. So go from being low to the bars, and I'm seated for this, but lowering my chest to the bars, and then just as I get the pedals up and over, give it that big, powerful stroke. At the same time, I push my chest back and that sends the weight back, puts the power in, and that should lift the front wheel. The next tricky thing is trying to keep your weight in the middle of the bike so you don't just fall off and lose your balance side to side. Really, that's just a case of using your knees to sort of counterbalance when it starts feeling like you're going one way or the other. That just takes loads of practice. I think the one big mistake that people do with wheelies is when the front wheel rises, they feel like they want to sort of counterbalance it, so they lower their chest to the bars to feel almost like they're in their normal riding position, but the front wheel's up, and that isn't like sort of riding the wheelie very well. What you've got to do is just pretend that your front wheel's come up and you tip back with it. So that's what I call sitting into the wheelie. So making sure that you're sort of keep your bum on the seat for now, and instead of your back being like that when you're riding, in the wheelie, it'll now tip back sort of at a right angle. So you really sit into the wheelie. That's when you get used to really riding that back wheel. Right, so those couple of things there, sitting into the wheelie and side to side weight, are really things to go away and practice. You can spend years practicing those things and getting better at them. And the easiest place to practice is something where you've got a slight incline. So you're powering into it all the time and your front wheel doesn't want to come too high, but it does help lift it up. Next thing, and probably the most important thing about mastering wheelies or even manuals, is learning to feather the back brake and using that to keep your bike on the balance point. So below the balance point, you're going to need to power it more to keep the front wheel up. And once you're behind the balance point, the bike's going to want to loop out. So that's where you flip out the back. Hopefully in flat pedals you can jump off. But once you learn to get that control on the back brake, it'll keep it there. And then you can move on to really advanced things like a manual, or even one of the most fun things I think is a coaster wheelie. Down a hill where you can just sit on that back wheel. Down a hill, sat right behind the balance point, using that back brake to keep it there. Feels really cool. You can get to the point with coaster wheelies when your front wheel's super high and you're really far behind the balance point. So basically your bike's trying to loop out the whole time and you're just using your back brake to sort of drag the front wheel back the other way. So the higher it goes, the more powerfully I'm pulling on the rear brake to just hold it there. And it's a great feeling when you get that just about right and you're sort of dropping and coming up and dropping all the time. You need to have a good back brake, obviously, that really works. Be super confident, but also you've got to have a decent amount of grip on your back tyre. If it goes too high and you hit the brake and it either skids or just slides, then you're going to loop out anyway. But it's great fun, just really getting good with that back brake and learning how to keep it on that balance point without having to do like a manual. You're just sitting there on the saddle, not using your weight at all, just using the back brake. Coaster wheelies, manuals are all kind of sketchy tricks to learn and skills to learn, because you're putting your bike in situations, or your weight in situations where it can't stay there forever. Like you have got the chance of looping out over the back or coming off sideways, but it's still really worthwhile trying to learn and really learning how much that back brake influences it, because that is your safety net. And kind of controversially, I actually don't think that those manual machines that you can make help you that much. I think, yes, they can help with you learning the sort of moves, but actually I see people kind of get it on there, but they're not leaning into the wheelies or the manuals enough. They're still kind of holding the kind of bars with their arms bent, so it's actually not committing the weight to it. So I think you're probably just as well getting out on the trail, learning it. Like I say, you've got to nail the back brake control, because that is the key to this whole thing. But get out there, practice. Like I say, I've been doing this wheelies for 20 plus years. I still love doing it, especially the coaster wheelies.